is Tarik Talk. Your host, Tarik Mendez, takes you on a journey with guests from all around the world. Broadcasting around the world. Around the world. This is Tarik Talk.
All right, guys. Today we have Josh Urso here. He's a fellow artist. We're neighbors at R150. Artsy neighbors, right? So thank you so much for being here today, Josh. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. So do you want to start by telling us a little about yourself?
Yeah. I went to school originally for engineering, then changed into product design while I was at school. When I got out of school, I started doing furniture design and went into making my own product line of furniture. Did that for around 20 years, and my furniture was very artistic and sculptural.
Yeah.
And it kept on moving, progressing more and more towards the sculptural, less functional.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, why am I dealing with this furniture aspect?
Yeah.
Why don't I just go into the purely sculptural?
Yeah.
And so that's why I've changed now into just sculpture.
Oh, wow.
I was kind of tired dealing with with furniture you have load ratings and fire ratings and all these like necessary things you have to deal with, which became difficult when you're trying to do more of like art piece furniture. And I was just kind of had done it long enough and decided to move on, and so now I'm doing purely sculpture, concrete and stone based sculpture.
Well, that's so fascinating to hear you say that, because now like I'm thinking of like a cool, like the sculptures that you do now, they're so minimal and modern.
Yeah.
But like maybe like a cool cow, you know what I mean? Like something cool. I love a previous guest of mine on the episode, we were talking to Zara, and we were talking about, because she told me how she loves like a sculpture to be functional, where I prefer just the aesthetic. So I would not mind buying a couch that I can never sit on, just because it's beautiful. Like I will like willingly sacrifice for the beauty. And she's like, oh no, I need, I prefer, I need to have both. But that's so funny that you say that, because I'm kind of like that too. Like I love for the beauty, for the aesthetic. You know what I mean? Like for the art to be art in a way. You know?
Yeah, it was like sometimes you just want something just for the beauty. You don't need to have it being functional at all.
Exactly.
It's like it has a function. The function is it's beautiful.
Exactly.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
And do you want to start telling us a little bit about your creative process?
Well, when my sculpture that I make, I cast concrete, or I sometimes find concrete blocks from demolition sites.
Oh wow.
Or I take stone.
Yeah.
There's a guy I know up in Vermont who I get some Vermont marble from, and once I have the piece, be it I cast, when I cast the concrete, I make a mold, then I cast the concrete, then I disassemble the concrete or the stone with a sledgehammer.
Oh wow.
After that, I pick and choose which parts of it I want it to remain. And also when I am, disassembling the piece, I do have some control over where I want it to break. So if I want this side broken and this side not broken, I can do that.
Oh, wow.
But there's also, when it is breaking, you don't have complete control, which I like. I like the randomness that happens and whatnot. And actually, even since when I was doing furniture, all my pieces have been involved with some aspect you can't control. You can give the impetus to it and get it started, but the final product, you have control over the whole basic form of it, but the little minutia you don't have control over, which I really like.
Yeah.
So after I disassemble the piece, I then go in and paint it how I see fit, and then I reassemble it. That's
Yeah, no, that's good.
The quick tour.
The thing I love about your work is, like the sculptures that I've seen, is how, from far away it looks like something, and then with the closer you get, it changes, and then when you like do a 360 around it, it's like becomes like an interactive sculpture experience, you know, because it looks like a certain way, and then like as you said, some parts get like, chiseled, I could say, like, and that's to me so fascinating. And then when, back when we had that group show last year, I remember like seeing people interact with it and kind of like walking towards with like their phone, and the closer they got, they saw that it became, they like, everybody did the, oh wow, I didn't know it was like that from back there. You know what I mean? That I love.
I totally agree. It's like, from afar, far away, it looks like one way, but as you get closer, it's like you see these little random cracks form that you didn't see before, or the color changes. Yes, yeah.
When you're creating your work, are you like actively thinking about the visual experience of the viewer?
Yes and no. I kind of have an overall idea that I want for the piece to become, but as I was saying, I don't have complete control over how that piece will show up. And I definitely make pieces when I'm like, no, that does not look good. I'm not happy with this. And it's like, sometimes I can do something with it to make it work, and other times it's like, well, this is going in the trash can. It just didn't work out how I was anticipating.
So that was gonna be one of my questions. So when you start working on something, because I'm kind of like that too, like, because like I had so many guests that their creative process is different when they start working on the piece. So as you mentioned, when you start creating something and you really hate it, you don't like how it's going, are you willing to put it aside, or you just say, okay, no, like, let me just toss this?
I do both.
You do both?
Some pieces I just put aside. Like, I actually have a piece in my studio right now that I started, and it was going to be around a 6-foot tall piece. And
I remember from JCast, right?
Yeah.
I remember we were discussing that.
And
How did that go?
It's still sitting there.
Okay.
I got like 2/3 of it done.
Oh wow.
And I'm just not quite, right now I'm not liking the way it's going.
Yeah.
So it's just been sitting there in the corner, and I'm deciding what I want to do with it. Am I gonna finish it? Am I gonna throw it out? Am I gonna change it some way to make it work?
Yeah.
But right now it's just not speaking to me, and so it's just sitting there. And I've done that with other pieces where they sit there. I've had a piece that was like sitting there for like 2 years, and then I came up to it one day and was like, what if I do this? And it worked out great.
So,
but then other times, I just like
So do you
goes in the trash can.
I'm like that too. But like over time, like probably like the last 4 years, I've like started to like keep it and kind of be like, maybe I'll figure something out. So a lot of times for me, like I've just started ripping pieces from other sculpture, use that for future sculptures.
Yes.
Well, that took me like a long time because my first emotion was anger. Oh my God, what a waste of time. Where's the sledgehammer? Like this, darn sculpture or whatever.
Yeah.
But do you think having like especially for your work and your sculptures, do you think like being an artist with a art studio space? I ask this because I get a lot of questions from young artists saying, should I get a studio space? Does it really matter? Blah, blah, blah. Do you think being an artist with an art studio space like helped your medium and your work and your inspiration in a way?
100%, yeah.
100%?
Yeah. Before, when I was doing the furniture, we had a studio out near Giant Stadium. And it was in a big commercial warehouse.
Oh, cool.
And we had a back corner. And it was great because we had, it was a very large space.
Yeah.
And we had some machinery that we could have access to that was part of the warehouse we're in. But we were the only studio. There was nobody else working there.
Oh, wow.
And you'd go there late at night, or on the weekend it would just be you. And it's kind of hard to, in my opinion, get the creative process really flowing when you're in a situation like that. And there's nobody to just bump ideas off of. Like a few of the pieces I've done now, somebody walked into my studio, one of the fellow artists on the floor walked into my studio, and they saw like the pieces lying there or something. And I was like, just kind of like, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with this. And they're like, oh, what if you try doing this? And and it may not. Well, usually I don't do exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But it gives you just an idea of something to try, and it gives you a lot of inspiration. Whereas if you're sitting there by yourself, it's hard to come up with inspiration.
Yeah.
When I was doing the furniture for the first 10 years I was doing it, I really did not want to be inspired by anybody else because I wanted everything to just be like purely my own. I wanted to have like my idea, and that's it. I didn't want to have anybody else putting thoughts into my head about what I was making. And that was one of the worst ideas I ever had because it's hard to come up with everything on your own. It's like, you need inspiration from other people, and you can build off of that. It's like,
no, I'm laughing because I love how blunt and honest you are, because most people are just like, oh, whatever. But that's very nice. You have that self-awareness, because I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to ask, sorry, I totally lost my thought process of thought. But what I wanted to ask was, because I'm the opposite, I don't like people around me. I find it very difficult. Like if I'm working on something to stop, have a conversation, then be able to go back to work.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, somebody said, "Oh, try it like this" or whatever. Do you actively want like people's input as you're working on something, or after you're finished?
I don't know if I actively want it while I'm working on it. I don't mind people telling me what they think about it, because sometimes I might be like, no, I don't like that idea. Sometimes they'll give me an idea, I'll use it. Sometimes they'll give me an idea and I'll actually do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And it works out.
Yeah.
But I actually share a studio with my wife, Kim.
Shout out to Kim.
Yeah. And we'll work at the same time in there. And we just won't talk to each other at all for like hours. We'll just be working totally separately on our own thing, not conversing about what we're working on at all. And she'll actually sometimes get really annoyed at me when I ask her what she's doing. She's like, I'm working on my own thing, leave me alone.
Yeah, no, I'm like that too. Like, sometimes like if I'm working on something, I literally would like run to go to the bathroom, run to go get water, and then come back in, because if I talk to anybody, like the whole idea, the whole day that, you know what I mean, like, it's like gone. I can't ever go back. I have to like go home, chill out for the rest of the day, and start over. So like, I don't want to be rude to anybody, but then like, if you know what I mean, like I cannot not say hello, but then I can't say hello because then I'll lose like my whole idea process.
Yeah, that makes sense
you're kind of
to
like
me.
that too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like that because I'm like, when I get concentrated, I get like heavily concentrated.
When you're in the groove and like,
exactly.
then somebody interrupts you and you're like, no.
Because then like
spark for a moment.
Because like I'll get so deep in the conversation, like I'll do that. You know what I mean? Like with me to talk for like a whole hour, 2 hours, or not talk at all and focus on the art.
Yeah, like I often go to the studio in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'll go there for like 4 hours and I'll do almost nothing just because I wind up talking to other people.
Yeah. How early do you get there? Like,
not too early. At 8:30.
Oh, okay, that's pretty early.
Yeah.
Because that was gonna be my next question. Like, are you an artist that likes to work in the nighttime or the daytime?
Morning. Yeah.
Morning.
I find I get the most inspiration in the morning for some reason. I think because it's a little quieter in the studio, less people there. I've gone in the afternoon and just hear other people working, and sometimes it can be a little distracting. So definitely I'm a morning person for the art.
And when you get to your studio, like, are you able to like get to work right away? Like, are you inspired right away, or do you kind of like, have a coffee, sit down, get your things together?
Yeah, I definitely do that. Have a coffee, kind of relax. I don't usually jump in right away.
Yeah.
I kind of walk into the studio. I usually have like 3-4 different projects going on at the same time.
Okay, cool.
I'll have my coffee, look at all of them, kind of decide what I'm going to do that day. Come up with some ideas for them. Go from there.
Yeah. So, a question that I had, shout out to Kim again, because I had her previously to you. Before, like when I first saw your work, and then before I got to know you and like talk to you as often as I do now, I always thought there was like, both of your work in a way kind of like inspired by nature. You know what I mean? Like, I always felt like, I don't know how to describe it, kind of like the Grand Canyons, where it's like this muse-like, formation of design and mix of colors. When you guys, because you previously mentioned to me, you go hiking, you're always in nature a lot, and you drive for so long, which I one day want to do because I get car sick, so I can't unless I'm the one driving. Do you think nature inspires a lot of your work?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
My original inspiration was actually when we're out in Death Valley in California. We're going hiking there for a week, and it was both the colors of the stones in the landscape out there, because it's like very subtle, but definitely there. You have the cliffs will fade from like yellow, blue, red. It's really beautiful. And we were on a hike also out there. We're walking and the mud had like dried quickly, and this area that was like roughly the size of a room had all cracked. The floor had all cracked, and it had made these pieces roughly this big with cracks roughly that thick between them that went down like a good foot or more. And that was the partially some of the original inspiration. That, and once we went to Egypt, and obviously everything is there. It's really old and it's broken, and you see how they've reassembled statuary there, and there's pieces missing, and there's big cracks in them. I've just
Yeah.
found that beautiful and interesting.
Yeah.
And so the combination of the two of those have kind of inspired my work.
Yeah.
And now I've progressed some, and I'm looking more at a little bit of, decay of the cities and how buildings are kind of decaying, and that I'm also getting some inspiration from.
The thing I love about your work is that, like, if somebody were to describe to me, I mean, if I were to describe your work to somebody, I would say, like, organized chaos.
Yes.
Because I love chaos,
Yeah.
like, artistically, but I also like organization. I'm a very organized person.
Yeah.
But I like how there's so much to interact and embrace your pieces, but it's kind of like very minimal and modern. It reminds me a lot of like Richard Serra work, a
Yeah.
little bit, but more, I would say more attainable, more where you have that, it's not just like one piece and there it is, take it or leave it. It's more like you can walk around, you can look on top of it, you can like, use your phone camera to like, you know what I mean, get
Yeah.
different angles.
Well, I agree because, a lot of the forms I start with, it's
Yeah.
a pretty simple form. It might be just a rectangle or a
Yeah.
cube. So it's very geometric, but then, when I go and shatter the piece, now you
Yeah.
have all this, like, random cracks going
Yeah.
through and pieces missing, so you have this geometric form on the outside,
Yeah.
but then you have this, like, these fluid lines running through it that is totally, chaos,
Yeah.
as you were saying.
Yeah.
But then you have this structure that is very, concrete and definite,
Yeah.
and this, cracked chaos going through it.
Yeah, because like I think it's like the perfect piece to have in your house because it gives you both like I don't know energy like an espresso shot, but
Yeah.
also gives you like that zen that you need to have in your house. That's
Yeah.
not too much.
Yes.
And I remember the thing that made me go about your work was when I remember you were showing me, and then the pieces, like the tall ones, they're detachable.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like every art gallery owner would die for this because shipping is such a headache.
Yeah.
And this is like just facilitates the whole process.
Yeah, makes it a little easier.
So how did you think? Was it like accidental, or with your experience in furniture making, did you think, okay, due to shipping or like the logistics, I need to create something, but I need to create something like consciously that's easy to ship and build?
I don't think it was conscious, but I agree with you. It's probably related to the furniture and always having to deal with, you have to move stuff from
Yeah.
wherever you're making it to somebody's home.
Yeah.
And if you have like a statue that's a piece of sculpture that's 6 feet tall, and it's all one style of mass, it's a lot harder to move it. Whereas if you can break that down into 3 pieces, just makes it all a little easier.
Yeah.
And also sometimes some of the pieces I make where it lets the owner sometimes rearrange the pieces how they would like.
I didn't know that part. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that I really love about your work is when you have the like overhead lights on it, it becomes like a 3-dimensional piece, like
The shadows.
or 4-dimensional. I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
it. But the shadows
Yeah.
and the textures from the shadows onto the floor, wherever it reflects, I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you've seen them yet. I just started working on them. I actually only have 1 piece done so far. I have 2 more that I'm working on now. Wall-mounted pieces
Oh wow.
that are, they're the
Oh wait,
concrete.
I saw the press pictures from the Novato gallery. You did one like that there, right?
That one was, yeah. Oh, that one, yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, that was so good.
Yeah.
So amazing, yeah.
But the new pieces are, it's a rectangular piece of concrete that's roughly 1 inch thick, and then I put a frame on the back of it,
Oh, wow.
which offsets it from the wall by 1 inch to 2 inches. So it looks like it's floating off
Yeah,
the
I was
wall.
gonna say it looks like it's like levitating.
Yeah. But it's also cool when the light comes down,
Yeah.
like you have a spotlight on it, and it hits the cracks, and you get these shadows on the wall. So
Yeah.
it's like, it just brings a sculpture to a different level.
I just love when artists think beyond the artwork.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a clean, interactive process. It's like on the wall, and not just like, oh, here you go, here's my sculpture. Congratulations, that's genius, because that was beautifully done and executed.
Yeah, thank you.
Going back to, as I had Kim here previously before you, and we discussed about, okay, so I'll explain the story so the question makes sense. So I was with like a very dear friend of mine in Central Park, and it was a kind of sunset time, and she's an artist, but she's married to like a financial district, Wall Street bro type of guy. So he doesn't like art, really doesn't care, he's local about it, he's like, whatever, it looks good to me. So when we were walking in the park, like the way the sunset was hitting everybody and creating shadows, I remember we both looked at the ground. And then I said, this reminds me of Kara Walker's work, because of the shadows. And then she said, oh my gosh, like, I I thought the same thing, but I didn't say vocally because I said these things so many years to my husband, but he never gets it. He just ignores me. That I just stopped vocally saying it.
Really?
And then we had this like discussion about artists being in a relationship with artists and artists not being in a relationship with artists, and a lot of artists love to be able to like vibe off each other and be like, hey, do you see? And they're like, oh my god, I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you? Because like previous guests, we talked about kind of the same thing. Like, how do you like having like an artist as a partner in your life?
I think it works out well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get to talk to them about your ideas, and they're probably going to be honest with you about what they tell you.
Yeah.
Whereas like, a friend may not be, even if they're an artist friend, they may not be 100% honest on what they're going to tell you when you ask them a question about your work.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're with somebody, they're probably going to be fairly honest about what they think of your work and the way it's going. So that could be very beneficial.
Yeah.
I actually think it would be very difficult to be with somebody who doesn't really have any interest in art.
Yeah.
That'd be tough.
I could imagine. Yeah. So in our last episode, Kim mentioned to me that you guys sometimes work together in the studio. Do you enjoy that process? Like when you guys are working together, you kind of like everybody like one is in one corner, the other's in the corner. But you kind of have like a dialogue of like, hey,
When we're working, we're pretty much working by ourselves. Like even when we're there together, we're working, more by ourselves. And I think we both kind of feel that we like working together there, but then sometimes we want to be there by ourselves also, like without the other person there. Just because it is, it can be a little disruptive having the other person there all the time. Just because like, I've done some stuff where I go and start breaking a piece of concrete.
Yeah, you can only imagine like everything fly.
And she's doing a printmaking, and painting.
All of a sudden, like these
or
like
I like
sands,
I whack it, and all of a sudden it's a big noise, and she's like, she's startled, and
It's
she's like,
like
you
a
have to
car
warn me
crash.
when you're doing that. It's
No,
like, I kind
imagine.
of forget.
And going back to your creative process, do you normally? You said you work in the daytime, and when you do, are you able, like, when you start a piece or you're creating something, are you able to like step away for it for like a day or two, or like like when your real life things, like you have a party to go to, do you get anxiety thinking to yourself like, oh my god, I didn't finish this, I have to finish it, or you're just like, you know what, come back tomorrow, it's all good, I have time tomorrow, or are you an artist like you need to finish things when you start them right away?
No, I don't necessarily need to finish them right away. Like most of my pieces take roughly 2-3 weeks from beginning to end.
Oh, wow.
Larger pieces are longer, but like the minimum is you're talking in a 2 to 3 week time period just to get one piece done. So I guess just because of that, I'm not like that much needing to do it, like get it finished right away, because I can't. I do though, like when we go away on vacation, you're gone from the studio for like 2 weeks. I start wanting to get back into the studio and getting to work again. That I definitely feel.
Do you get like that excitement, like, oh my gosh, I've seen so much?
Yes. Yeah. You want to get back and try it and be like, I have this new idea that I got from doing this hike, or wherever you may be, or you go to a museum and you see something and you're like, I have this new idea I want to try, and you're like, but I'm wherever and I'm not going back to the studio for another week or two, and you're like, I want to get back there and get to work.
And do you keep do you write down your ideas, or take pictures of things?
I don't. I keep it all in my head.
In your head? And like as soon as you get the idea, how long does it, for me, for example, like I'll let the idea incubate until it's like a finished product in my head, and I'll try to like emulate that into the real world.
Yeah.
Do you, like, how soon until you get an idea in your head that you're able to like start work on it? Is it like right away, or you just like kind of let it like cook a little bit?
Yeah, it depends. Like I have some ideas I might start like within a few days of thinking of it, and other times it'll be like, I still have an idea I want to try, which I came up with in the fall, and I haven't done it yet. So it might be a long time. And then there's other times where I come up with an idea which I think is really good, and I keep it in my head, and I just forget what it was.
Oh, okay.
And it's like lost.
No, I thought you were gonna say like sometimes I have an idea that I swear it's like the most amazing thing, then you do it and you're like, oh, never mind.
Oh, that happens
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
It's like such a heartbreak because you get so excited. You know?
Yeah.
Do
But
you
I also feel like, if you keep on turning it over in your head, sometimes you can work that out in your head, and you're like, you realize like maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So you don't waste the actual time making it.
No, totally. Since starting this podcast, I get like a lot of messages from young artists to ask questions to the artists that I'm interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
How would you, like, one of the main topics and one of the main questions that I get all the time is like young artists saying, I want to be an artist, I don't know what to do, like what's the first step that you would like give advice to them like to take?
It's a good question and a tough question.
I mean, it could be like anything, just like go for it, just start,
I think you definitely
think
just
too
have
much.
to just start, and like even if you don't have training, just try the ideas in your head and start developing them, and then you can go on, to get training from there. Also, I think if you have like an artistic block, you can't think of any ideas right now. Just keep on making, because you never know while you're making what you might do that'll all of a sudden give you an idea that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So even if you're having like, you don't have any ideas right now, just keep on drawing or building or do whatever you're doing, and that will probably lead to an idea in the future that you can then use.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. Have you ever an artistic block?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then like, how were you able to like overcome that?
Just continuing just to make pieces and hope you might make a lot of bad pieces when you have an artistic block, but hopefully that you'll one of them will give you inspiration for something else. But I remember like back when I was doing furniture, I had a block that was like almost a year long.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Like I just felt like I couldn't come up with any new ideas.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, I was a little.
And were you like actively working through it, or?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. And furniture side's a little different because a lot of it's a little repetitive. You're not always making a totally brand new piece. But yeah, I just kind of kept on working, and eventually, make a piece, or you see something that you get inspiration for, and you're like, all of a sudden, boom, you have an idea, or all of a sudden, boom, you have like 10 ideas, you had 20 ideas, you had nothing, and all of a sudden,
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. And going back to your like trips and your hiking, when you guys, because I asked him this, when you guys go on your, since your work is inspired a lot by nature and things like that, when you're like in nature and hiking, are you able to like be in the moment, or are you just like, because my brain like goes on all the time before I can never stop it, so sometimes I'm not able to enjoy certain things because I'm just thinking about idea, art, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you're there, are you able to like be in the moment, or are you just think, oh my god, this rock looks like a really cool texture, you know what I mean?
I can be in the moment pretty well. Like I'll definitely be walking and see something where I like, it'll give me an idea, and I'm like, I'll take a photo of it or something. I'll be like, I definitely, want to try that back in the studio, something along those lines. But a lot of it, I think, I'm just like, just seeing everything and subconsciously developing ideas in my head. Or later on, I'll develop ideas from it, but I'm not necessarily out there being like, here's an idea. Let me look at that. I think it's more of a slow building process just from seeing everything while we're out there and hiking wherever we may be.
Oh, that's pretty dope. Yeah. And then Kim mentioned you guys went to like 7 national parks so far.
Yeah,
I think we've been
it's
one.
like at least 7, maybe more. Yeah.
Oh wow. And do you have like, because she mentioned she like likes to grab like one stone from each, kind of like a remembrance in a way. Do you have anything like that?
I actually, I actually just finished a piece where we were in Zion, and we were hiking. We came across this area that the sand was very red. And when you're making concrete, it's a mixture of cement, aggregate, which is stone, and sand. And a large portion of it is sand. So I wanted to try this red sand to see if it changed the color.
Oh wow.
So I took a little baggie of it, which you're not supposed to do.
Oh really? Oh wow.
And just made a piece from it.
Oh, that's so
recently.
That's so cool.
So the color is different. It is interesting.
Is it like a red oxide color, like?
Yeah, it's actually it's more of a it turned out to be like a slightly pinkish subtle color. Yeah. Yeah. Little pastel-y pink.
That's so cool. Like now I'm like visualizing. I'd love to share a picture of that on the podcast if you're.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember some of your sculptures. They're all like a concrete color, and then some of them have colors with like within.
Yes.
How did you like? Which one did you start with first, and how did you go to the other one in a way?
I started off originally. I was just making concrete sculpture, and building forms out of plexiglass, styrofoam, wood, and it was just purely that was the sculpture. I wasn't breaking them at that point. And then I had the idea both like from the Egypt trip and that Death Valley trip I told you about with the cracks. Just try breaking a piece. It was like an off piece I had, and I broke it, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then I cast a few pieces that I was intending to break, which I did. And those I had not painted at all, and they were just like gray concrete that I had reassembled, which I did like. And then I saw an artist that was, painting some. Yeah, it was totally different than what I'm doing, but it was. He was painting some stone sculpture work he had, which just kind of gave me the idea of, well, what if I had some color here?
Yeah.
And that's kind of progressed to like painting in the cracks and going from there.
Yeah, because I remember I think you did have one for the show back in May, the group show.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh wow, this is like almost. It's almost like as a kid, like whereas Waldo, you gotta like interact with the paper and like see. So you're like seeing the colors and where it leads to. That's what I love about your work. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, thank you.
And as we briefly talk, when I asked you earlier if you, like when you create your pieces, are you actively thinking about like the viewer's experience? Do you like when people, like once they see the finished product, do you like hearing like kind of what they took away from that piece, like how they're bringing things, seeing your art? Like, are you a fan of that?
I definitely am. I, to some extent, don't want to tell the audience what my thought process is when I'm making a piece, because it's nice to hear what they think.
Yeah.
And they might tell you something entirely different than what you were thinking, and it's very interesting to get that input from people.
Yeah.
So I do sometimes just kind of don't tell people anything and see what they come up with and what they think of it. And,
oh, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
And do you share like after they share with you like what they thought? You're like, oh, actually, it's because of this, or do you kind of like to keep like that hidden in a way, kind of be mysterious?
It depends on my mood. Sometimes.
What sign are you?
What?
What sign are you?
Sagittarius.
What month is that?
December.
December. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think I'm Sagittarius.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because I'm a Scorpio, so I think you have a little bit of Scorpio like the Sagittarius people.
Yeah.
But Kim's in January. She's a Capricorn.
You might be right.
Yeah. No, which makes sense. She's like so chill and mellow and like drama free and relaxed.
I kind of actually like watching people try to come up with, like when they're looking at artwork or even a problem they might have, just trying to watch them try to figure it out, and I find that interesting.
From like the viewer.
Yeah, like me viewing them, trying to figure out what it is.
Like in real time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And do you like when they take pictures, because your work is like so complex, they can take like the coolest pictures. Do you like looking at people's like picture from their perspective into?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. They might see something that you don't,
Yeah.
and they capture it differently than you have in the past. And yeah, it can be very intriguing.
And what are you working on at the moment?
Right now I'm working on a few different pieces. I'm finishing up a piece that is 4 foot tall, that is made out of a cinder block I found from a demolition site, which I broke apart, painted, and reassembled into a 4 foot tall sculpture.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be in a show in Brooklyn coming up.
Oh, do you want to share the dates and everything?
I do, but I don't have them off the top of my head.
No worries, I'll make sure to include in the captions. That's all good. That's so exciting. Brooklyn, yeah, that's pretty cool. And are you going to be around for the art crawl? Because I'm pretty sure this episode will go live before then.
Yeah, it's May 11th.
Yeah, May 11th, 5 to 9, Thursday.
Yes, we'll have our studio open.
I just got to share because somebody asked me last time. What's the entrance? It's first and?
It's 157A first.
Proverse. How do you pronounce that?
Proverse. Yeah. Provst.
Yeah. I'm always like it's first on yes,
Yeah.
that one.
That one.
Because I don't know, it's like such a weird word. Josh, do you mind telling us what else you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm doing some pieces now using marble, Vermont marble, which are actually cut-offs from this mason up there.
Oh wow.
He does a lot of stone masonry, like fireplaces and whatnot. But he lets me come to his property, and the cut-offs he has, I get to use. And so I'm doing some pieces now where I'll carve the marble into a block and then break it.
Oh wow.
And some pieces I'm painting and reassembling. Other pieces I'm leaving broken and using some wood as wood and steel as a plinth for them, which is, I think they're coming along pretty well. Some of the pieces will be ready for the art crawl in a couple of weeks, so it'll be good.
Oh wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And going back to your furniture days, because I thought that was very fascinating, like the whole trajectory from furniture to the sculptures. Now, do you keep like kind of like an archive of photographs of your work, like everything you ever created?
Maybe not everything, but yeah. I have a lot of it. Yeah.
I'd love to share that on my Instagram if you're comfortable, because that looks
Yeah.
pretty cool. And you ever like go back to, in a way, like for inspirations, like on the pieces you created, and maybe like, oh, I'll take this corner from here and then use this for like a present time art piece?
Huh. I don't know if I do consciously do that.
Do you like to go back and like look at your work, like review it, or
I do.
you just like kind of look forward to the future?
I like looking at the old stuff. I actually, our coffee table is one of the coffee tables I made, so I look at that every day. But I think like
I remember my question. Oh my god. Okay. So, and this is the question I forgot to ask him. So, because this is very fascinating, like getting taught, and this is like I never thought about this until somebody mentioned. I said, "Oh my god, I think like this too." In your house, as you mentioned, do you like keeping some of your work? Like, do you like looking at your work every day?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Older pieces, like I have a coffee table that from my furniture days that I made, which we have as our coffee table in our living room. Honestly, though, the sculpture I don't have in our apartment. And when I was doing furniture, we didn't have any of our furniture in our apartment.
Yeah.
Because I see it every day.
Yeah.
And I like seeing it every day. But I don't necessarily want to have it in my house at the same time.
Yeah.
I have other artists' work in my house, and I want to see their artwork.
Yeah.
I see mine in the morning, and I come home and see other people's art.
So it balances it out in a way.
Yeah.
When you look at your work, like, do you see it as a product, like as a finished product? Do you think, like, when I look at my work, if it's in my house, I don't like to look at it because, like, I'll remember everything that led up to creating this, like the emotions that went in it, whatever was happening to me personally during that time. You know what I mean? Like, it goes a whole backstory. I don't see the piece. I see like the whole.
Yeah.
Are you kind of like that, or are you just like, hey, this just
Yeah, a little bit like that.
A little bit like that.
Yeah, you might be like, I remember doing that piece. And what was happening in your life at that time. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah. No, that is true. Yeah. But and also I wanted to ask you, like, how soon, like, were you one of those artists, like, as soon as you were born, like, you just have memories of, like, always drawing and sketching and things like that, or?
No.
No?
I did draw when I was little, but not that much.
Yeah.
I was kind of, I guess, looking back, always interested in art, but wasn't really pursuing it that much, or really at all. I went to school for engineering, and while I was there, I learned about product design, which, that's what I went into school for. But, I went, freshman year, went to apply to product design, and they're like, all right, let me see your portfolio. I'm like, I don't have any portfolio. So I had to make a portfolio to try to get into design. And honestly, before that, I had never really drawn that much at all. And so it was a little embarrassing, like freshman year of design, like,
You're like, hi.
Yeah. People would like, all these people have been drawing for their whole life, and I'm there, and like, drawings are pretty horrible. Like the first project we had to do was a self-portrait, and that was a total disaster, I remember.
Oh my gosh.
It did not look good at all.
Do you have any pictures or anything you keep during those years for yourself?
don't.
No?
No.
That would be like fascinating to look at, like,
Yeah.
you know, the early work and then compare it to now and see if there's like little pieces that show up in present time to your work.
Yeah, like I remember a lot of the stuff, but I don't think I really have any photos of it.
That's fair. You know, I think like a retrospective would be dope of your work because it's so diverse and so different. You know, it's almost like every era was like a complete different thing.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody nowadays is like kind of like reinventing themselves as an artist every 10 years. Like, well, let me do this, let me do that. And you did it so like well, so executed like subconsciously in a way you weren't like trying to, but you did it. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's like, you know, kind of just doing what I want to do at the moment.
And do you, when it comes to idea, are you, like, how do ideas pop in your head? Like, do you have to be in motion? Do you have to be in nature? Or somewhere urban? Like, have you noticed, like, your best ideas come when you're doing, like, a certain thing? For me, it's like when I'm in motion, like when I'm in an airplane driving. Or something like that.
It depends. Like, you know, sometimes, like, I'll just be, driving or sitting in a coffee shop and an idea will just pop into my head.
And how does it come to you? Is it like a finished product, or is it like kind of pieces or colors?
It kind of is a finished product, but then usually I think about it and I change it, you know, because, you know, usually the first thing that pops in your head maybe is not the best thing. But it gives you an idea of where it could go with something. So a lot of times, like, before I go to sleep, I'll just be lying in bed thinking about how to develop a piece. And a lot of times, a lot of ideas will pop in my head then, and I'll kind of just develop them while I'm lying in bed in my head.
And do you ever, like, have an idea and think to yourself, well, this is not really that interesting to pursue, and then maybe, like, a year or just a few months later, you see somebody else with the same idea with the finished product? Did that ever happen to you?
It has. Not with the sculpture so much, but back with the furniture idea. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's like the craziest.
It is.
It's like an outer body experience. You're like, what? Right? It's almost like we share this like iCloud creative consciousness that's like floating, and we input ideas and take out ideas, right?
Yeah, it's like it is interesting, but also annoying when you're like, I had that idea.
Yeah, I could have done that idea. I could have done it better. Right?
Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Or you have the idea, and you know you had it, and you actually made it like 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden you see somebody now doing the same thing, and you know they're getting all this acclaim for it. And you're like, I had that idea, 10 years ago.
No, it's like one thing if you do it and you never like put it like on social media or like advertise it, and like somebody does it, it's like, oh, what a small world, that's weird. But like when somebody does it after you advertise, you know, put all this work, oh my god. Well, I'm not even going to do that.
You've had that happen?
No, you'll see something soon. Many times, unfortunately, but yeah, that's what I would suggest to artists, like knowing the business side of art. And have a strategy, like a business strategy, and having like, let's say like a lawyer and retainer to like take care of things when you need to.
You know, that aspect is kind of the hard part about art. It's like, you know, you're an artist, but as an artist, you also have to be, you know, somewhat a lawyer, somewhat an accountant, a media person. You know, you have to do advertising, you have to do all these other things that, well, maybe you do, but I personally don't really want to do. I just want to do the art aspect, but you have to do everything else too, which, you know, can be a little bit of a drag.
No, definitely. And I remember my other question was, because you said you like went to school for engineering first. Are you able to like for example, when I have to do my business day where it requires like documentation or email or like Zoom meetings or in-person meetings, I can never do art on that day because like my brain is so focused like on the business side, and if I'm doing art, I cannot go do math. Like that's never gonna work. Are you able to do both in one day, or do you like do one day one theme and then the other day another day?
I usually can do both on the same day.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's genius.
I think that's also partially why I do the art in the morning.
Yeah.
Because then in the afternoon I can do the obligations which are not art related. You know, be it updating the website or the business aspect. But I find if I do that before the art, that I can't do. I need to do the art first during the day, and then the other things later. Because the other parts I find just I don't know, ruins my mood for making art.
Have you worked in the nighttime and then switch back to the morning, or to you it doesn't really matter? Because you said like you and Kim Stein work together and you guys work separately. Are you kind of like, do do you kind of schedule your art time with the daytime, or just like when you have time, or when you're inspired by?
Pretty much
Like
when I have time.
Yeah, when you have time? Okay. Because like when I have to do something very hard, I go for nighttime. When I have to do something that I know I can complete it, it doesn't have that much thought, I can just like get in the zone and finish it, daytime. You know, how do you program your art, or are you just like spontaneous with it?
Um, I'm just kind of methodical about it, just go pretty much every morning and just try to hash things out, hash ideas out, and some mornings it's very productive, and work on 3 different projects, maybe get 2 of them done, come up with an idea, start that, and other days I'll go and do pretty much nothing.
Oh, wow.
I'll be there for 5 hours and almost get nothing done.
Like other artists, like they really beat themselves up, like they really have to, like their creative happiness is how much quantity they're creating and supplying from their studio. Do you think like that, or for you it's like the process?
For me, it's more the
quality?
process.
Yeah.
Process, quality. I'm not looking to churn out a whole lot of pieces necessarily. More trying to make the piece that I want to make than that's how I get joy out of doing it.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself, like, creatively, like, in 10 years?
It's a good question. 2 answers. One, I don't really know, because, I was doing furniture 6 years ago. I never, back then, didn't think I'd be doing sculpture now, so I'm not sure what I'll be doing in 10 years. Good chance I'll be doing sculpture. But I would like to be doing larger pieces, outdoor, large sculptures is what I would like to do.
Like your sculpture for Coachella, or like a musical Burning Man.
Yeah.
Like that would be so dope, you know, because it's so different, and the light reflection, and the shadow.
Like getting a nice 30, 40-foot piece out there. Yeah.
And if you have like a little, like a hole in between the blocks, like the light travels through.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Seeing the sun coming through it.
Yeah, it will be like these like futuristic modern like TV shows and movies when they have that cool thing. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. But yeah, whoever's listening, please reach out to Josh. And talking to you and Kim, and previously Kim was saying, because I asked her, what do you see for the future? She says, I'd love to do a residency surrounded by nature. But then like, being a viewer of both of your work, like the first thing I thought was the textures of both of your work. It reminds me a lot of Iceland. So if anybody from the Iceland marketing team that visit Iceland, like every country has a marketing team, please set up a residency, because they'll create the most beautiful work, and it's the most beautiful place to be in.
I'd love to go to Iceland.
It's like you're in like Mars. Like people ask me, like how would you describe it? It's like you can't. You have to visit. It's like I'm never gonna waste time, because it's just so amazing. Like a rock. It's like when you pick up a rock, it's like a rock inside of a rock with like. It's like I can't. Like I'm speechless. It's like the most. It's like you literally travel to a different planet, everything. But it reminds me a lot of like the textures there.
That's on my very short list of places I'd like to see.
Yeah. Oh, and I also wanted to ask you. Okay, Josh, do you mind telling us your website and Instagram, please?
Yeah, my website is joshurso.com, JOSHURSO, and my Instagram is Josh Urso Design.
Perfect. And we had previous artists that had people reach out to them, so I always make sure to ask. Are you open to like commissions? Can people just like reach out to you on your website or Instagram?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
So,
if I don't like your idea, I might not want to do it, but I'm definitely open to the conversation.
Why not, right? Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I'm so glad we finally were able to sit down and have a really cool conversation together.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you being here. I definitely look forward to meeting again and discussing like maybe like 6 months a year from now, seeing what you're up to then. But in the meantime, you're participating in the art crawl next month.
Yeah.
Just to double check again, it's May 11th, Thursday, 5 to 9, right?
Yes, and there's going to be a bar too.
Ooh, okay. That's pretty dope. Yeah, so make sure to head out. I might be there, I don't know. I might be out of state.
Oh, you should be there.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll definitely try to stop. But it's an amazing event. Kim will be showing her printmaking new prints. And you'll also be showing like a new piece, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
right?
I'll have a few new pieces there.
All right,
our studio will be open. It'll be great.
Perfect. All right, thank you so much for coming again.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Tarik Talk. Follow Tarik Talk on all social media channels and check out the video interviews online.